I love a win. And that's because people just cannot pronounce my surname. Growing up as a Vietnamese immigrant and refugee kid in America in the 1970s and 80s, no one could say Nguyen, which is how it's actually pronounced in Vietnamese. So people just came up with all kinds of variations. Nguyen, Nigel, Nguyen, and then finally kind of Nguyen, and then Nguyen. The pronunciation Nguyen actually became especially prominent for me in my high school and university years because I competed in speech and debate all across the United States, and I used to win so many events that my fellow competitors would say, "Win, Jimmy, win," and the name stuck. So too did the idea, and more importantly, what I stand for today. Because as a child born in a war-torn developing country but brought to America, I'm fortunate to have been given the educational resources, career platform, and opportunities to empower my potential to win. First, as an IP and digital technology lawyer for 21 years in the US, starting at the height of the internet Silicon Valley boom of the 1990s. And then second, as an early Bitcoin and blockchain leader starting around 2016, eventually becoming president of the global association, Bitcoin Association for BSV. And now, thank you, as an entrepreneur in tech and business projects globally. Along the way, however, I realized that part of my mission is also to help empower other people to win, not just me. Whether you are a student, young entrepreneur, an experienced leader in business, government, perhaps even an entire company, organization, community, or country. How do you empower your potential to advance, improve, succeed, and win for yourself? Well, that's why I'm here today to give a win speech, a new speech concept I conceived to invite global leaders, you'll hear some from more after me, to come share with you how to win in one chosen field, to give one win lesson they can articulate in 15 words or less, and share personal and professional stories to teach you how. I'm here to talk about where all true wins begin. You. How to win at you, no matter who you are. Well, my win formula doesn't require 15 words. It only requires 3, in fact. 3 based upon the letters in win itself to create what I call a win formula. A win formula that is comprised of the following. W, for who. Step 1 is to really reflect and recognize who you are, where you come from, what shapes you. Second, I, for inspire. Discover what inspires you. Based upon your identity, past experiences, and who you are, figure out what that motivates you to do, and more importantly, why. Why are you motivated? Is it to improve your family, to make a difference in your community, to have self-satisfaction in a particular field? Or is it driven by more negative emotions, such as trying to prove doubters wrong, anger at your situation or your country, or perhaps just to get over hurt situations from long ago? We all have things that motivate us, and the truest wins come from pursuing goals that are driven deep in our core. And finally, N. For new. For N, we have new, which is to find new ways to actually implement that inspiration that comes from who you are. Because we can all achieve good results and what we perceive as success by copying or repeating what other people do. But the best, truest wins come from actually exploring innovative ways to leave your unique mark in the world. So let me share my journey of how I got to my own win formula. So I was born in Saigon, South Vietnam, the youngest of 4 children to my father who became a judge in South Vietnam. So that's me, the baby, and my entire family. But my family actually had to flee Vietnam in April of 1975, just the night before Saigon fell. And we're lucky to be resettled out of Vietnam to the United States by the US military. But back in the United States, it was very difficult for my parents who spoke very little English. And then I was the kid who knew I was different. We were one of the only Asian families in town. And so, like a lot of kids at that time, I kind of ran away from my immigrant and Vietnamese heritage and tried to fit in and be American. And one of the ways I tried to do that was to fix this, the Asian bowl haircut that my mother would constantly give me that made me look very different on the playground, so that I would spend entire hours in the bathroom trying to make waves or curls in my hair so I could look like the other kids in school. Well, that didn't work, and what I then did is like, okay, well, I'm not going to fully fit in, so then I just try to focus on school and excel, because that's what Vietnamese mother wants their kids to do. I did very well in school. I graduated high school at 16, university at 19, and law school at 22, following in my father's footsteps to be a lawyer, just like he wanted one of his sons to be. So, at this point, I've been checking off the boxes, doing all the things that I knew to do well, but realizing I wasn't doing anything unique. And as a young lawyer, I tried to really search for that. And it was only around my young adulthood that I started really talking to my parents about their life in Vietnam, trying to understand who they are, and more importantly, who I am. And my father told me a story that has really stuck with me to this day and changed the entire course of my legal career. When he was serving on the bench in Da Nang, Vietnam, a criminal case came before him where a man who was associated with an American Christian missionary church in Vietnam was accused of sexual assault of a young woman. He was sitting in the back of the courtroom, and my father looked up as before the case was called, and something completely unusual happened. Lights started coming down from the ceiling, almost like from heaven, over this man. Nothing he had ever seen before. It was completely startling. He called the case. The man came forward to the podium in front of the bench, and the same thing happened. And in that moment, my father did something very unusual. He looked at kind of the case file and decided that the evidence was not sufficient enough to continue to prosecute the man, and he acquitted him and let him go because he decided to follow his heart. Something that you would think in law, which is very logic, analysis, and evidence-based profession, doesn't come into play, but he let himself follow his heart. Let the man go, and cut to a couple years later, when my family had fled Vietnam and were in tent refugee camps in the islands of Guam in the South Pacific, the U.S. military base there, which were tough living conditions. And who shows up there but the same man that my father acquitted and let go, who was part of a church group processing Vietnamese refugees into the United States. Recognized my father instantly, took our family outside of the tents into a hotel for better living conditions, and that man is responsible for finding a church that sponsored my family into the United States as one of the very first to get into America. It is a powerful lesson in how following heart, no matter what the technicality, legal, mumbo-jumbo jargon of your profession is so critical to following the right path, and more importantly, leading to wins you may not expect. And so when he told me this, it really opened something in my mind as a lawyer. Instead of just being the technically good lawyer, I just figured out I need to be a lawyer with heart. And it meant that I started communicating with my clients with more empathy, personal relationships. I won more clients because of that. I started using heart and emotion more in my arguments, in legal briefs, in court, in hearings and trials. And as a result, my career took off even more, so that I was proud by the end of my law career, having been a partner at 3 major U.S. law firms, to get to represent all of these amazing organizations and brands in the United States. The Motion Picture Association of America, Major League Baseball, Sony Pictures, Microsoft, Amazon, Uber, Lego Systems, even the Miss Universe organization, because I developed relationships with clients and used heart in what I did as a lawyer. A lesson I learned by asking who my father was, learning who I am, being inspired to use heart in my profession in new ways that were unusual in law at the time. Give it up for my father. That's really him. My next story, however, is about my mother. While I learned heart from my father, I learned ingenuity from my mother. Knowing that South Vietnam was likely to collapse in the months before we left, she started trying to take cash out of banks. But of course, cash became very short. She also had the ingenuity to realize that even if she took out South Vietnamese dong notes in another country, they would be worthless, useless. So she had the ingenuity to take some of that cash and buy gold bars, which she then took out of the country by wrapping them in a piece of fabric, almost a towel, underneath her shirt because she was concerned about losing them or having them stolen. So, years later, in the United States, after living in a two-bedroom small apartment, our entire family, after only a couple years in the United States, my parents, as immigrant refugees working minimum wage jobs, were able to buy their very first home in the United States because she sold those gold bars for cash for their down payment. And when she told me this story, it really struck me as to what would have been their life differently, better, easier, had they been able to access their cash and funds and assets from Vietnam in America. What if they were not lost? What if they were accessible? And the reason that struck with me years later is when the words Bitcoin and blockchain first entered my life around 2013 and 14. After Bitcoin emerged, clients of mine started calling me, wanting to explore how Bitcoin and other virtual currencies could be used to make international transfers and access to money more efficient, more accessible, international remittance less expensive than it is today, creating technology and products that would allow us as persons anywhere in the world to transact with value that would not be lost, even if the country was lost. And that is why when clients called me about it, I took this particular interest. And it's not the only reason I left law, but it was a particularly motivating reason for why I finally decided to leave law partnership life in around 2016 to jump into the Bitcoin and blockchain industry, becoming CEO of one of the largest blockchain R&D firms in London for a while, and then becoming the president of the Global Bitcoin Association for BSV, a scalable competing chain of Bitcoin designed to make Bitcoin and blockchain used for good, where I traveled around the world, as you can see here, speaking, including here in Pakistan, to educate people about the power of Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and blockchain to be used for something good, to create products so that people like my mother would not have to go find gold bars to take out of her country to save her money. A lesson I learned by understanding who she was, how that affected me, inspiring a belief in technology to find solutions to problems like this in a new way, the new era of Bitcoin. So that explains why I have been lucky to be invited back by the current government of Vietnam decades later to speak at their Future of Internet conference in Da Nang about the intersection of blockchain and internet protocol in the very city where my father acquitted that man decades ago. It's also why I believe that this leads you to be able to win at you, even if not a person. As organizations, companies, countries, we can ask, who are we supposed to be? What are we inspired to do with our company and organization? How can we do it in new ways? And therefore, this explains the name of my current business brand, Nguyen Global, trying to drive these new wins across the world with a combination of the lessons my parents taught me, innovation and inspiration to achieve new wins. So I am so excited to have developed an entire WIN network, partner companies, about 25 of them across the world, that deliver tech solutions in AI, blockchain, metaverse, investment, education, including companies here in Pakistan like the Career Institute, including regional partners like Ejad Labs with FutureFest and the Career Institute, to drive solutions that use technology and business to empower these same ideals. It's why I spend time in developing countries such as Vietnam, where I'm from, Nigeria, where I was last October, and here in Pakistan, because I believe in the necessity of empowering the potential of people to win. And last October, I took a delegation of about 10 friends, companies across the world, including Arzish Azam, the founder of FutureFest, to the government's Digital Nigeria conference in Abuja, Nigeria, in order to try and extend collaboration with Nigeria. And our goal, particularly with Arzish, Arzish is to actually try to find ways in which Pakistan and Nigeria businesses can collaborate with Kashifu Inawa, the Director General of the National IT Development Agency, because we recognize the countries are very similar in their demographics and their talent and their aspirations. What inspires them, which is to create opportunities using technology for your young generation to have more prosperity and doing that in hopefully new ways. We'll see where that ends up, but I'm excited for those collaborations. So what am I doing now? As I'm continuing my current journeys, I have this WIN network, but I have a couple interesting new ventures among my portfolio of businesses. With my good friend and longtime colleague, Steve Shatters, who is the former CTO of the companies and technical team involved with the BSV blockchain, we have co-founded a new company called Zetium, which is using his idea to create a distributed computing infrastructure that will make AI inference and other emerging technologies that rely on computing power far more efficient and 90% less costly than it costs by using the big tech giants' cloud computing services. In a mission to make technology like this, especially AI, more accessible and affordable for all. Because we recognize who we are, which is people interested in scaling technology that inspires us to create products to make things useful and accessible for everyone, no matter what country or socioeconomic level you're from, and doing it in new ways, an alternative to the big tech giants' cloud computing services. My second venture I'll conclude with, that I'm involved with, relates to Pakistan. It's with my friend Mohammed Salman Anjum, who's Pakistani and splits his life between Dubai and here in Pakistan. And he is the founder of a company I am proud to now be chairman of, a company called InvoiceMate. And the company uses blockchain technology in order to process the management of invoices, but also to power an invoice financing marketplace, which allows SMEs, small businesses, including here in Pakistan, the UAE, and more countries to come, to get cash faster on their unpaid invoices, because we have convinced banks, including about 8 here in Pakistan, some in the UAE, and soon to be Saudi Arabia, to offer lending pools, money, credit pools, to lend on those unpaid invoices, because our blockchain product can verify the integrity of the invoices faster and more accurately. This is using who we are, people interested in blockchain technology for good, inspired to create products that help his native country and other Middle Eastern and soon other developing countries in a new way, an invoice financing marketplace powered by blockchain and AI that has never been done before. So I'm excited to see where that leads, and I'm proud to be the chairman of that company. And of course, I have to thank Arzish Azam, who you'll be hearing from in a second, for his leadership in reflecting who he is, a young Pakistani entrepreneur driven by an inspiration to make more opportunities for the young generation of Pakistan, and doing so in new ways, such as the innovative ways that Future Fest is showing. So with these lessons, I hope you're opening your mind to how you can win at your life, your career, your company, your organization, your community, even your country. It all starts by recognizing who you are, discovering how that inspires you to take action that is meaningful, and finally, finding new ways to implement that vision. For me, my WIN lessons really began, of course, in Vietnam, where this little boy was born, but of course, that's not where this little boy grew up. But I learned my WIN lessons later in life from my parents, who are thriving still in Southern California, with my father at almost 90 years old and my mother about 86. And it's amazing to see their thriving life, a second life in the United States. But the WIN lessons of my life and theirs really started in Vietnam, where we had a life and we really grew. And what are you doing? Okay. All right. So thank you. where they served, where they grew, where they married, where they elevated, where they birthed a family, children of hope, a new generation of Nguyen. A life together in one country but disrupted. And now it's time to take their lessons of yesterday and create a brighter tomorrow, a better world of Nguyen.
Bye-bye.